Hey, it's Soul, back with another episode of Warcraft Weekly, the show that takes your biggest concerns and the drama of the game and turns it into not that big of a deal. I mean, seriously, it's 2022 and we live in a world where you can sell pictures of farts. Yeah, you thought bathwater was bad? Pictures of farts.
Oh, suck that sweet, sweet copium.
We're only a few weeks into the year, man, but anyway, let's get right to the news, starting with a status update of the Warcraft Community Council. It's still there, hey! More developers are showing up and talking, notably the master of all pet things, Jeremy Fiesel. My concerns happen to lie with the number of active members in the council, though. About 30 or so members have been invited as far as I know, but only a few have been proactively making posts and participating, which frankly is fine. The topics being discussed are relevant, but no one topic is going to be relevant to everyone. For example, no one's discussed add-ons or data mining, and there are members in there like Marleman who are very involved with that particular subject. But the WoW team can't rely on folks like him to feel empowered to speak out, and we can't say the same thing for anyone else. This is an opportunity for the team to field questions as if they were sending out random surveys, only this time the answers given will be, well, less than anonymous. Having a lot more people in the council will help out a lot too. After last month's debacle, the team is, well, they're rightfully putting more efforts into vetting applicants and inviting people in waves. It just appears that 2 weeks into the new year, faith and patience are being tested, but you know me, I'm stuck in fantasy land, imagining like a Zoom call between council members and the game director, which in so many scenarios in my head sounds like a huge opportunity for candid conversation and more than likely a train wreck. Here's my real concern though. According to an update post from the team, additional topics are actively being discussed and posts will be made accordingly whenever details are finalized, which kind of reads to me like the team has to, I don't know, get together behind closed doors and decide the subjects that they want to bring up before sticking their necks out to the council. I get that it's probably not a good idea for any single developer to unilaterally open up a subject that might end up spinning out of control. That doesn't do anyone any favors and it would just end up being a more or less toxic distraction. But this also feels as if the team is going to circle the wagons, so to speak. And by that I mean to carefully choose easy subjects where they already know the outcome internally and they're just going to bring it up in the council forum. They acknowledge the point, but then they announce what they were already planning to do. Like, hey, we did it. High five, boys. Yeah. And maybe I'm letting my imagination get the better of me. That's my concern, and it's just an opinion. For what it's worth, the council forum has been useful as a kind of focal point for feedback and responses, and it's not like the public forums are being entirely ignored either. Now though, for your thoughts, is the forum being used effectively? Are they ramping up too slowly, or are they in the right for taking more time to vet potential members? Next up, we have dates to discuss and renewed speculation as to when patch 9.2 is going to launch. I should first point out that there are two major features that come to mind that aren't testable yet. That's the new Mythic Plus affix and the Creation Catalyst. It's going to be the feature that will convert regular gear into tier pieces, and we're going to talk more on that later. This week, the team responded to a council request for posting tentative raid testing dates sooner. Let's take a look. Just the other day, one mythic boss was tested, another 2 mythic bosses a day later, and the second raid finder is going to be available over this weekend. The week after, they're going to test another 2 mythic bosses, and from the looks of it, all normal bosses over that following weekend. After that weekend is over, counting the previous tests, all 8 bosses with the exception of Raid Finder and one will have been tested. The remaining 3 are meant to feel like a total surprise, which, for people like me who run semi-blind progression anyway... Oh, don't get cut! Ah!
That's what this is for.
Ah, speed.
Well, now we know.
You're the only one alive there.
Oh,
right?
I know. I'm saying that for y'all.
Ew. Okay, we were not supposed to take them
Separate
together.
them. Separate them.
Can't. Yeah. Oh well. The point is, public testing of the raid will be done by the end of this month, which marks a major milestone. That's not all though. The Arena World Championship schedule has also been announced. The TBC Classic Tournament will take place in the later part of February, while the Shadowlands Season 3 Cup will begin March 18th. It's kind of a strong implication that the patch will drop before this date. But when exactly? Let's start from here. Let's go backwards from the week of the 18th and pretend that the Race to World First happens to end sometime that week, whether it's before or after the raid reset. Let's assume that on the previous week, Mythic raids opened and the race began. The week before that, the raid would have opened and Season 3 began. The week before that, the patch will have dropped because, historically, seasons have been starting 1 week after the launch of the patch. This will put us at the week of February 22nd, a date which many fans, including myself, have been speculating on, so this theory still fits. Topping it off, the Sylvanas book releases at the end of March, so it all just kind of comes together. Considering the state of the PTR, which definitely could use about 6 weeks worth of polish, I'm really confident about this launch date, which does make patch 915 a 16-week patch, or a 34-week-long Season 2 of Shadowlands. That's pretty long, yeah. Consider that the seasons during Battle for Azeroth were 28 weeks long, roughly a month and a half shorter of a wait. I think we can say that, in hindsight, based on the timeline that we're seeing here, Shadowlands could, and I guess should, have been delayed for months instead of just 1 month, with respect to how much the work-at-home situation clearly jacked up production. Running around with Twilight Devastations for a few more months wouldn't have been like the worst thing ever, but, again, just my opinion. How does February 22nd as a launch date sound to you? Is it solid enough to start making plans to take time off or to even resubscribe to check things out? Share your thoughts. Now let's get to the actual 9.2 build with the drama, the excitement. Mostly the drama. I brought up my concerns over the upcoming legendary belt and memory that lets us wear 2 legendaries unless you're a Night Fae Paladin. Then I'd say, yeah, there are bigger concerns to have. Right now, there's a pretty heavy reputation grind behind obtaining these. As much as some of us want to think that Blizzard lied, apparently we were informed of this as far back as November in an interview with John Haidt, translated and covered by Wowhead, but then, I guess, quickly forgotten. So I retract my earlier statements that I felt misdirected by the interview that I did watch, at least. Does this mean I or other folks should be less upset? Of course not, but it's not like the team suddenly came to this decision or changed their minds. Thankfully, and here's the PTR excuse, this is the PTR. The decision is not final until it's final. So far, the feedback has been almost entirely one-sided though. The rep gate is just way too punishing. I can see opportunities where changes can be made, where the belt's purchase requirements or the rep requirements can be much more easily available. So easy, in fact, that the people participating in the Race to World First can obtain this without too much fuss or urgency. As for the memory, the ability to craft this thing wherever you like, maybe leave the revered requirement there. Now, that's not the perfect solution either. Peoples whose legendaries are already slotted to their belts, they're gonna feel pretty bad. Now they have to move their legendaries like in patch 9.1. Now it is gonna be a little bit less painful since we can break legendaries down, but having to buy another base piece is not going to please those particular players. So maybe the memory should be available early on instead. That way everyone has to buy another base piece and everyone gets what they want, especially big crafting. Oh, they're gonna be laughing their way to the bank. One question that I have for you all though, do you feel that reputation, just overall, as a feature, do you feel like it's too out of date? I've observed numerous comments that reputation should be like account-wide or something, but I'm skeptical of that. I can see that shifting problems around rather than solving them. And maybe reputation should just go away, maybe? Let's see what you have to say. Next, we have some verification on how tier is going to drop, but take all of this with some skepticism for now. First, when looking at loot tables, which aren't fully complete by the way, it appears that it should not be possible to complete a 4-piece set for any class in the first week of the raid opening. Now here's a chart with all the bosses and which bosses drop tier. As you can see, one boss will drop all the gloves, while another drops all the legs, and so on and so forth. The first 8 bosses drop 3 of the 5 pieces of tier, and only the first 8 bosses will be available in any difficulty the first week of the season. On the second week, all bosses will be available, as well as access to the remaining tier set pieces. So good luck to the top raid teams trying to get that tier. Have fun in normal. Here's what people have been finding during raid testing though. It seems as if tier pieces are on an entirely separate loot table from other pieces. Let me explain. During Mythic testing, groups were seeing 4 pieces of gear drop for the raid on Mythic, and that's kind of a normal thing, but they were also getting 4 pieces of tier on top of that. In a way, think of it like conduits, or better yet, like pets that have dropped from the raid on a separate role that doesn't get in the way of actual loot. Now, tier is not going to drop in the form of tokens. That's a pain point that we can shout from the rooftops all day. However, decoupling tier pieces from the loot table and adding them in as well is a pretty big move. According to the Wowhead article, the tier drops obey the same loot rules as regular drops, as in like the number of drops increase or decrease with the size of the raid. So in theory, for a 10-man group, they're going to get 2 pieces of regular loot and 2 pieces of tier. Irregular groups of like 13 or 21, they're gonna have a chance of extra loot at the rate of 20% per person. Basically, the math is gonna work out. Here's what's more about tier. According to the raid testing, bind on equipped gear from the raid seem to inhabit the same slots as tier pieces. Also, there are going to be non-tier pieces on every boss loot table. I mentioned the creation catalyst earlier that can turn these non-tier pieces into tier stuff, and gear obtained from Zereth Mortis, the Zone, dungeons, and PvP should also be able to be turned into tier. With respect to what the team is trying to do to sort of like limit completing the 4-set bonus too early, the creation catalyst probably won't be available for anybody until at least the first week of Mythic, 2 weeks into the patch, but it could easily be later. The takeaway that I'm seeing here is that outside the race to World First, tier is going to be far more accessible than first believed. Of course, this could all change, and for the best way for the WoW team to assure players would be to give an announcement on their intentions, just like they did earlier in Shadowlands when they had to restore drop rates during Castle Nathria. But now, the floor is yours to give your take. I'll do a couple smaller bits. Folks who've been dependent on the powerful mastery trinkets from the mission table or the world quests might want to make sure that they have the best one on hand right now. It looks like 9.2 is going to nerf new versions of the trinket that are obtained, but so far, they're going to keep the current ones that you already have in your bags intact. It's a little bit weird, and it might change, but it shouldn't be too hard for you to get these before the release of the patch, and, well, at worst, you would complain. Yeah, okay. The solo shuffle, aka solo queue brawl, is still being worked on, and efforts are being made to deter people from leaving games when the going gets rough. This is a bit significant because it's the first time we've seen the team address the deserter buff in quite some time. According to the post, they're considering a move where leaving multiple times within a 24-hour period will increase the duration of the deserter debuff by 5 minutes, and it will, it'll eventually decay. That doesn't sound like the worst idea ever if we consider applying this to PvE content like Mythic Plus, where this is not a thing, and people have been asking for something for a while. Now imagine a 15-minute blah deserter buff if you leave a key or you disconnect, your cat's on fire or whatever. It's not the worst thing, it's a minor inconvenience, it's fairly understandable. But now imagine more aberrant behavior, edge cases, serial leavers, if you want to call it that. Those people are definitely going to feel punished for abandoning multiple games, and after a while, maybe they'll wonder, maybe it's not the group, maybe it's f***ing Blizzard. I'm taking this to social media for the clicks. The most hilarious part about their solo queue update though, protection paladins are going to be singled out in a way that anyone who queues up as one are only going to enter a match with another protection paladin, meaning that you're probably never going to see me in this brawl. So thank you, Blizzard, for making me feel special. And that's the show. I talked about leak season in this recording, but as a last minute thing, I opted to separate that into a different video for fun, so be on the lookout for that. Anyway, now that we're at the end of the week, this turned out to be quite a roller coaster of emotion if you're the type who, puts their emotions into video games. 9.2 is shaping up to be a final patch that is a bit more conservative about letting things get out of hand. Like, think of how Legion legendaries were put onto a vendor to shorten the inevitable collection. Think of how Battle for Azeroth corruptions were put on a vendor to allow for some really insane game mechanics that statistically it would have been hard to pull off without that vendor. Patch 9.2, on the other hand, it doesn't quite have much of anything like that. It's like, so far it sounds like it'll be easier to develop tier sets, whether it's your main or your alt, and you get double legendaries. Woo. But the bigger pain points, I guess, were already addressed by the time we hit patch 9.15 with regards to like crafting legendaries, earning renown, and swapping covenants. Like I said, double legendaries are cool, but it's just restricted to a certain legendary. The combinations available between tier pieces and augmented crafted gear, even, well, I guess domination gear too, and the sockets, maybe cipher gear, all of those things are fun things to play with and to enjoy. And for those who are interested, there are a crap ton of cosmetics to farm for that I'm sure very few have been able to 100% complete. So is it really that conservative, or did the WoW team just do it right earlier by decoupling some of the more problematic features soon enough that 9.2 feels more like, you know, a patch with things to do and less of a sigh of relief? I'm not sure, but I'd love your thoughts and reactions to what's been going down this week. A huge thanks to the wonderful Twitch family. It's been a whole lot of fun to just kind of sit down and cozy up and just chat about WoW and stuff. I ain't mad that the Patreon family has been shrinking, but I gotta give a shout to Dan for stepping it up. And all of you are super awesome. And of course, I haven't forgotten about you, viewer, who made it to the end, and I'm really grateful. Help continue doing what I do by liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more of this and all things Warcraft. Have a great weekend, folks. I'll see you next week, but until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.